Welcome to this episode of The Wisdom of Paramahansa Yogananda, brought to you by Self-Realization Fellowship, where each week you can receive inspiration and guidance from Paramahansa Yogananda's Kriya Yoga teachings. The subject of this talk is The Interior Life by our beloved past president, Sri Mrinalini Mata.
Divine Mother, Friend, beloved God, Jesus Christ, Bhagavan Krishna, Babaji, Lahiri Mahashai, Swami Sri Yukteswarji, beloved Gurudev, all saints, we bow to you all. Beloved God, beloved Guru, in the secret silence of our soul, teach us how to commune with Thee, to be ever at Thy side, to be receptive to Thy guiding words, to receive Thy all-inspiring, divine love. Help us to be always receptive to Thy transforming blessings, to live, to move, to have our being in Thee and in our love for Thee. Om Shanti. Amen. I have been thinking so much about Master this evening. Perhaps it's because some of you devotees said, well, if you're going to give class, can't you tell us some experiences, some of your personal experiences with Master? You know, this is one of the most difficult, I find, one of the most difficult of all subjects to speak on. And I will tell you why, if I can tell you why. Just as it is said that in meditation or in your relationship with God, if you speak of those experiences which you have with God or of your deepest feelings for God, it is said that you lose something of that experience. And this is very true when we speak of our experiences with Master. True, there are many things that are for the ages. There are many stories which we have told you many, many times about Master, his samadhis, different things of this nature, which do belong to posterity. Many such experiences we all have related to you, born of the inspiration or the feeling at that moment, just as sometimes you will speak of your deep feeling for God to another devotee. If you feel it at that moment, it will inspire or help. But it is difficult to speak of those personal experiences, those personal instances. But I'm sure that this is why there are many, many untold stories of all of the great saints. For instance, the disciples of Christ did not relate in the Gospels that they knew they were leaving for mankind. They didn't relate all of their relationship with their Master, because there were some things perhaps that were meant for that devotee's welfare, and two, they were something that were so personal and sacred. I have been reading a story of Teresa Neumann, relates some of her life and some of her visions and experiences, and it deals mostly with the main part of her experiences having to do with the crucifixion, the resurrection. it is said that she often had visions of incidents, glimpses into Christ's life during the time that he was here on earth. But of all of the visions related, there is one that particularly touched my soul. And it was because perhaps it reminded so much of Master and of the relationship that the devotee attains with his guru and with God, the kind of a relationship that you don't wish to talk about. It is said that Christ liked to go to the home of Lazarus, particularly when there had been some difficulty in his mission, when there had been some misunderstanding or something had pained him. Lazarus was a very wealthy person. He had a very nice home and was more than generous to his master. He always saw that they had very nice rooms to stay in. He always treated them with special care, special food and attention. And perhaps it was during those times that Christ felt being away from the multitude and with those who understood him, he could relax. Because sometimes it was said that the servants used to carry stories to the outside that made the outsiders say that there was great revelry or merrymaking going on in the house during those times of Christ's visit. In this particular instance, Christ and the disciples were visiting Lazarus, and until late in the evening, they were talking about those things that were nearest and dearest to the hearts of all of them. In other words, they had been talking of God all that evening. But they were not going to stay there overnight because Lazarus was expecting some guests to come, and so Christ didn't want to stay. He was going to remain. So when they decided to leave, he sent the disciples back to the inn where they were staying, and the inn was owned by Nicodemus, and he had provided rooms for Jesus and all of his disciples there at that inn. And he sent all the disciples back to their rooms. He wanted to be alone. But John very much wanted to stay with the Master. But out of obedience, he followed the others back to the inn. But he couldn't get the thought out of his mind, just longing to be with his guru. So soon he got up, he left his room, he went out into the night, and he felt that he would find his master in the Garden of Gethsemane. So he went to the garden. She described it as a very bright moonlit night, and he had no difficulty at all finding his guru. And when he saw him there, he ran up to him. He couldn't restrain himself. He ran up to the guru and embraced him. And though obviously Jesus wanted to be alone, he couldn't resist that love, that pure devotion of his disciple. And so he went with John. They left the garden and walked together back toward the inn. And when they arrived at the inn, John began helping the guru to retire in his room. Jesus had a very nice private room. And it said that Jesus did not have his sandals on as he was walking through the garden and back to the inn that night. And his feet had become torn. They were covered with blood and spots. In other words, he had injured his feet in walking. And as John saw this, he began trying to take the blood off the feet by kissing them with his devotion. It said that Jesus just reached down. He reached down and took the disciple and pulled him up to his chest and held him there in that embrace of divine love from the devotion that he was feeling from the disciple. John didn't speak of that experience when he left the gospel for the world. Why? Because that's something that so much touches the soul. Your relationship with God and your meditation, the deepest feelings that you have, you speak of it to someone else. You see immediately you've lost something. That is why when you are seeking God, when you enter the spiritual path, it becomes a very interior life. No matter how active you are on the outside, and that activity is good for us. Our association, our relationship with other devotees on the spiritual path is very good for us, because all of these things serve to make us a more balanced soul. Our soul, of course, is perfectly balanced. It is perfect. But its expression through the ego is very lopsided. I know years ago, perhaps you saw in one of the early magazines, Master had drawn little figures of the unbalanced person, too big a head, or one short arm and one long arm, or long legs and short arms. So this is really the way that we must look, in a sense, to God. Because our ego, our second nature, as it expresses, it is very unbalanced. It is very imperfect. And so work, activity, and especially association, relationships with other people, very much help to bring out what is lacking in our own nature. Because on the spiritual path, you cannot escape from your abnormalities. You are brought face to face with them day after day. That which irritates you most in others, that which is most difficult for you in your work, in self-surrender, and all of these things that are asked of us on the spiritual path, that which is most difficult for you usually means that it's because you lack some quality that is akin to that in your ego nature. And that will keep coming to you. It will keep rubbing you until, through those experiences, you learn to see yourselves as others see you, ultimately to see yourselves as God sees you, as your Guru sees you, so that you can change yourself. But even though we are external, even though we work hard, even though we have many activities which require association, mixing with others, not only in work but in recreation, in enjoyable gatherings, in our meditations, still the life on the spiritual path essentially is a very interior one. And if one stays only on the surface and never creates that interior life, that interior relationship with God and with Guru, he entirely misses the point of the spiritual path. And sooner or later, as Master said, like a great Ferris wheel, that devotee moves to the outer edge and is thrown off. The interior life means an anchoring in God. In that interior life, that is the very basis, the sum total of what you are gaining on the spiritual path. That interior life is your relationship with God. You base it upon either a concept of the divine that you are seeking as father, mother, friend, beloved, or as some quality which your soul is longing for: love, beauty, wisdom, joy, peace. Whatever relationship, whatever concept you base that relationship on, that is for you personally. And as you go on developing that relationship, you will find that it serves really as an anchor. That as that relationship becomes more real to you, that interior life, that interior communion with God, and that interior striving, wherein you are not only seeking and loving God, but you are analyzing, you are introspecting, you are striving spiritually to perfect yourself in those things which are revealed to you, not only from your inner communion, from your inner relationship with God and Guru, but from your external relationships and activities. But the changing that is going on within you is not external, it is internal. It has to be born in there first. In other words, there has to be a desire to change. When the desire is there to change and to become better, to be able to reflect that more perfect being, that soul which you really are, when that desire comes, then understanding begins to come. Understanding again comes from both without and within. That is, the causes, the stimulus for the understanding comes from both without and within. Because our experiences and our relationships are all trying to tell us something. It's amazing sometimes how deaf we can be. We speak of turning a deaf ear. We do that all the time, every day, countless times during the day. Everything that happens to us is trying to tell us something. When the desire is deep to change, to realize God, to get out of this world of Maya and to go back to our eternal relationship, our eternal union with Him, then we find that the understanding, when something happens to us, instead of being suddenly on the defensive, we turn within. We seek solace in what is more real to us. The external thing that has happened, that is only a stimulus that's meant to do something inside. When that inner life becomes important and becomes real to you, you immediately find yourself going inside. And as soon as you get into that interior life, and you say to God, you say to your Guru, what is it? What is it that you are trying to tell me? What is it I am to learn? Then understanding begins to come. Understanding begins to tell you, this, my child, is what you have to learn. You have to overcome this extreme sensitiveness. You have to overcome this extreme selfishness. You have to overcome this extreme tendency toward lack of self-surrender. You will always find answers, or you will always find the understanding, the guidance that you need once you have established that inner life. You only can establish it, of course, by meditation. As Master said, balancing your activity with meditation and your meditation with activity. If you meditate deeply, if you strive in that meditation to make God something that you are not just thinking about, but something that is very real to you in whatever form or whatever quality most appeals to you at this particular point in your spiritual understanding and striving, then you will find that that relationship does begin. It begins to talk to you. How sweetly Master said to us, God does talk to you. He does begin to talk to you. But you have to be very silent. You have to be silent by meditation. And secondly, you have to be very receptive. Those ears do not get open so long as the ego is standing there and saying, but, there is this reason and there is that reason, such and so did not understand, or nobody really realizes how difficult this is for me because. Nonsense. We can't understand ourselves. We aren't meant to understand ourselves in a state of delusion. That's what delusion is all about. You only begin to understand yourself when you're able to step aside from yourself, when you are able in that interior life to completely put self aside and say, now this or that has happened, or this or that is troubling me. What is the answer? Where must I change? Not, Lord, change this circumstance. Not, Lord, change this person. Change her attitude toward me. But, Lord, where must I change? Ultimately, the devotee gets to the point where even that sense of I does not exist. You get to the point where at times and then more and more often you can see it as though you were completely apart from it. The I or the you is not even identified with the problem or with the circumstance, because you begin to see it as God sees it, just as a play. And as you see it as a play, then you see, well, now, this actor acting in this circumstance what would be the divine way to respond? And you immediately have that understanding and the desire to respond in that way. That interior life is the only thing that you will find you have to cling to when the going gets rough on the spiritual path, so to speak. If you have that interior life, if you have that ability to interiorize and to there find that relationship with God and Guru and your real self, your real nature, then there is no test, there is no difficulty, there is no amount of delusion that can shake you from the spiritual path and from your spiritual striving. Because that interior life becomes the only thing that is real to you. Then you are able to live and move and have your being in this world, seeing it as the Blessed Master said, seeing it just as the dream or the drama of God. Those who think it real, to them it is a nightmare. Those who know it as a dream know how to live and behave, to react so that this dream, through their instrumentality, can be made a little more beautiful, a little more peaceful. You can alleviate the nightmare in some other suffering, struggling soul by your own understanding, by your own example. That is what the spiritual life is all about. Getting away from the unreal and getting back to the real. And the only place that you find the real is in that interior life, in that interior relationship. But when you establish that relationship, as that becomes more real to you, you realize how much more difficult it is to speak about it, because you do lose something of that sweet relationship with God. Because everybody in the ultimate sense has to walk the spiritual path alone. Guru is there to guide. Guru is there to drop both of his hands. If you put up one hand and ask him to help you, he will help. Your spiritual companions, your spiritual friends are there to encourage through their love and understanding and their example. The sadhana that the Guru gives is there to show the way, to give you strength, to keep you from error. But the walking, the actual accomplishment on the spiritual path is a very solitary one. And each person's relationship with God, each devotee's relationship with God is absolutely unique. It is unique with that devotee. Yes, there can be similarities of spiritual experience. Everyone can see the same spiritual eye. Everyone can hear the same Om sound. Everyone can feel the same love or perceive the same beauty, experience the same divine realizations of truth from God. But still, their relationship with God as devotee and beloved, as devotee and Lord, each person's relationship is unique. It can't be for another one. And that is the part that becomes very personal. That is the part that becomes most real. That is the part which you should not share with others, lest you lose some of the sweetness of the special grace, the special blessing that God gives perhaps singularly to you alone. The beauty of our relationship with God and with Guru, I think, is this uniqueness for each one of us. Just as the story of Krishna, that in playing with the gopis, each one became jealous because they wanted Krishna by their side. Each one became jealous because they wanted the special attention. They wanted the special affection of the Lord with them. And in that form, he could be with only one at a time. So it is said that one day as Krishna was dancing in divine ecstasy with the gopis. And there was this wish on the part of each, but I want him by my side, that he took many forms. And he danced with each one at the same time. And each one had that singular experience, he is mine alone. That is what is so beautiful about God, because that relationship is there. For each one of us, he is ours absolutely alone. We don't have to, in that sense, share him with any other being. What we feel for God and what he feels for us, that is something unique with our own soul, with our own relationship with him. And it is perfect and complete with each single individual, as perfect and complete as it is unique. Whatever longing, whatever desire, whatever emptiness, whatever yearning there is within the heart, that is the way the Lord responds to you. That is what that divine relationship will fill in your being. But as Master said to us, don't be discouraged, because for a long time, before the Lord fulfills it fully, he plays that little game of hide and seek with us. As Master said in that beautiful poem, receding spirit dear, when almost I had touched the robe of thee. Until the devotee sat down and went within. Then suddenly that hand removed that maddening band that had blinded the devotee. And then he heard that voice whispered to me cool and clear, "Hello, playmate, I am here." Where was that? Inside, in that interior life, in that interior relationship. It's something you have to strive for, something you have to sometimes struggle for. But always, as Master said, you go on struggling, you go on working, you go on endeavoring, you go on striving on the spiritual path, and then when you least expect it, sometimes when he has seemed the very farthest away from you, there is some little indication of his love, some little indication that, yes, my child, I have heard, don't despair, I am there, I am just behind your struggle. Master very much loved the story of Saint Anthony. Perhaps it was one of the very few books that Guru Dev read from cover to cover. And when he was reading that book on one occasion, he was in Tucson, Arizona. Well, there was a period there when he wanted to get away from the pressures of Mount Washington and duties for a time to work on his writings. And on one such occasion I was privileged to accompany Master. And it was during that time that he was reading that book of Saint Anthony. He was working on some of his writings. And then in the afternoon for a time he would go outside and he would sit out in the sun and read that book. And the time that I was there, I never saw Master. I never knew him to do this before, but it was so sweet. He used to read that book to me, but he had a double purpose. He would read several pages, and then as he would read, he would underline unique English words that were not commonly used, that were not too familiar. And after he had read several pages, it usually went on maybe a half an hour or 1 hour, then he would give me the book, and he would have me go over and sit with a dictionary, look up the meaning of all those words and write them out at the side. Master knew what he was doing. He was training me for work that he wanted me to do in later life. This I came to know. But at any rate, he was reading the story of Saint Anthony. I think that his life is especially dear to me because I can always remember the Blessed Master reading those stories about his life to me. And especially when Master came to the part where for years St. Anthony spent the greatest struggle in lonely solitude on the desert. He lived in an abandoned cave or a pyramid, I believe it was, tomb. That was by the tomb. And some devotees who knew that he was there, that he was a devotee of God, would occasionally come and leave crust, bread, and water there at the tomb for him. That was all he lived on, whatever the divine might chance to inspire someone to leave there for him. And this went on for many, many years. And during this period, St. Anthony was tested severely with all kinds of temptations. And at the culmination of these experiences, it seemed that the end finally had come. The devil himself had appeared in form with his legions of demons, and now the devil was saying that you must renounce, there is no God. Where is your God? Where is he to protect you now? And these demons were actually tearing down the tomb. It was ready to cave in around him. And he felt that surely this is the end. Surely I shall die. But still with that last breath, he called upon God. He said, I know you are. In other words, Satan could not with all of these temptations, could not with all of these threats, alter his love, his belief, his faith in God through all of these years. And just at that moment when it seemed that that surely was the end and the tomb was falling in upon him, the devil and all of his cohorts vanished in this great blaze of light, and there stood Christ above St. Anthony. And Anthony fell on his knees before the Lord and said, "Oh Lord, where were you? Where were you in my fight and all of these struggles?" And Christ answered him, "Anthony, I was with you all the time, and I saw your fight." The Master read that. He read that about 3 times, over and over. And tears were in his eyes. I can see how beautiful. I could see in his own relationship with God, in the drama he had played not only in this life, but in many past lives, which were all known to Master. It was all one. It was all one big show to our blessed Guru. And I know too that he was weeping those tears for all of us, saying, don't be fooled. Don't be fooled by what Satan, what Maya will try to tell you, that the Lord is not worth seeking, that these troubles which you will go through, even as the blessed Guru had to go through so much for all of us and to build this work, still through all those struggles, the Lord was never for a moment absent from St. Anthony's side. He says, I was there with you, Anthony, all the time, and I saw your struggles. Indeed, where did Anthony get the strength to go through those trials except through his love for God and that responding love which gave him that strength? So that is what is meant by gaining that interior life, that interior relationship with God and with Guru, which nothing can shake, which nothing that Satan could contrive or that Maya could tempt you with, nothing can shake. That relationship will be all satisfying, even in its very embryonic stages. That interior life is a great anchor and is very satisfying to you. It answers all the needs, all the interior needs of body, mind, and soul, when that relationship with God is once established. That flame of desire for God, it becomes a blaze which takes away all the darkness from the tomb of our life. Sometimes I think that is really what we are living in. Our soul must feel very caged in this tomb of the body. It is a very dark tomb so long as it is filled with self, so long as it is filled with desires, so long as it is filled with attachments, so long as it is filled with moods, so long as it is filled with self-love, so long as it is filled with jealousies, so long as it is filled with self-pity. And I think that everyone, every devotee on the spiritual path, if he has ever known a moment of sadness that is born from anything except that sweet sorrow which is longing for God, he has self-pity. Any time that we feel sad, frustrated, disappointed, moody, this is just self-pity. You analyze it sometimes and you will see you really enjoy that state. You really feel justified. You think, I've been struggling so long and so hard that I have a right to feel sorry for myself. Nobody else is going to feel sorry for me. Let me for a time feel sorry for myself. But in that thought of self, you close the door. God can't get in. Whereas if we can, as Jnana Mata did, as she can say, change no circumstance of my life, change me. Let me. I know that I am the one that has to change. Lord, change me. That understanding begins to come, and then you suddenly feel such a great sense of freedom. In all thy getting, get understanding, as the Bible says. Why? Because that understanding is absolute freedom. Once you begin to have understanding, and if you can learn to have it in every circumstance, ultimately, when that state comes, you never can feel bound again. You can never feel limited. You can never feel hurt feelings again. You can never indulge in another mood. You can never feel sorry for yourself. You can never feel jealousy that somebody has something that you thought you longed for but you don't have and somebody else has. These feelings cannot be there when understanding begins to come. And with that, because all of these other experiences are like stones that are sealing more and more the soul in that dark tomb. The more you knock them out with understanding, it is born of desire to be with God, to perfect yourself so that you can know God. It's like knocking out all those stones one by one till you are absolutely free. You feel that no amount of, how does that poem go? Stone walls do not a prison make, nor iron bars a cage. That no matter how many restrictions you have placed upon you externally, no matter how many rules, for instance, you have to follow on the spiritual path, you cannot for one instant feel that they are binding you. You cannot for one instant feel anything when you have understanding, but that you are absolutely free. A free soul. A free soul knows nothing but love, knows nothing but joy, knows nothing but absolute fulfillment, all satisfying, joy forever. That comes, as we have said, first of all, from desire for God, which helps us to establish that interior life and that interior relationship, which in turn brings understanding, which in turn brings absolute freedom. See how simple it is? When you boil it down to its formulas, it's so simple. How complicated we make it. Every day we make it so complicated. Because we are, instead of surrendering and say, all right, I've got to change myself, we try to go on justifying why everything else is wrong, why the rest of the world is out of step and we are the only ones that are keeping time to the cosmic music. We wear ourselves out so uselessly. We find that in doing so, we've been marching, surely. We've been marching a big circle. Sooner or later, we're going to find out, no matter how much we can justify present problems within ourselves, no matter how much we can justify or shall we say, get away with our present imperfections, by thinking, well, nobody has corrected me on this, or nobody has mentioned to me that I haven't been doing that. In other words, justifying or getting away with. We go on marching. But sooner or later you find that though you think you are going forward, you've come around in a big circle and you're exactly where you were at the point when you started that justification. The same problem is there. There will be perhaps a new set of circumstances that are confronting you now, trying to say something to you, trying to get those deaf ears open. And that keeps happening. We're just running in circles in this creation until we forget self, and then God begins to lead us on that straight and narrow path. We forget self, then God begins to lead us through that little silent voice in that interior life, through the understanding that comes from that outward, and begins to speak to us through the voices of our spiritual friends, of our spiritual counselors, of the circumstances that happen to us each and every day. That voice of God is trying to say, my child, this is the next step you have to take in your soul's spiritual unfoldment, as our Guru put it. This is the next step you have to take if your soul is going to unfold. Yes, there are many other avenues open. You don't have to go that way. You can go that way, or you can go that way. But it's going to take you in a circle. Sooner or later, you're going to be right back at this very point. This is a step you're going to have to take sooner or later. My child, Master is saying, God is saying, take it. Listen to me. As Master used to say to me when he would instruct, never on spiritual matters. On spiritual matters, whatever Master said, it was obvious to us because that understanding, that receptivity was there. We didn't have the knowledge maybe to know the why, but we knew it was right, and that was all that mattered. And so we did it. But in little things, sometimes if Master would say, do such and so task, do it in this way, my mind used to sometimes think, immediately start working, I would think, well, I could probably do it better or quicker if I did it this way. And sometimes I would say, Master, is it all right if I do such and so? Finally, Master, I think he saw that this could be a flaw, because remember, there's nothing that you can have in your external nature that isn't going to in some way affect your spiritual or your internal nature. That's why you can't excuse small external faults. You have to work on those too. So Master could see that that kind of logic, that kind of reasoning could be a hindrance as well as a help. Yes, he taught us to think. He would scold us if we didn't, if we just blindly went ahead without seeing what we were doing or understanding what we were doing. He scolded us for that too. Again, there was always that balance, discrimination, to know what is right at the right time. So whenever I would do this with Master, if I would say, yes, if I do it this way, Master, is this all right? He would say, just do it. He'd say, do what I say. I don't have time for your logic. I don't have time for your logic. Just do what I say. I came to know that there was a great deal of wisdom in that. Because that logic, that reasoning, can always justify. I don't care what it is that you want to do. You can even find scripture to quote that will justify. If you really want to do it, if you really want to justify something in your nature. So that kind of logic, that kind of reasoning is no good. Then it's when the Guru says to you, I don't have time for your logic, just do what I say. Without hesitancy. Without stopping to analyze and try to explain or to justify this or that, or maybe this or maybe that way would be better. Just do it. Do it out of that inspiration and love and desire for God. And as that interior life becomes more real, as you begin to live more within, you will see that you get to the point where that voice within, which is always talking to you, it's always there. Learn to hear it. Your discrimination. With discrimination, keep that ear open so that you will always hear it, so that you will always do what is right, when it is right, because it is the right thing and because you are instinctively, intuitively led to do the right thing at the right time. That is when you know that you are beginning to make a little progress on the spiritual path, when you aren't dependent upon externals, when that common sense evolves into discrimination and discrimination evolves into wisdom-guided activity. Then you will know you're beginning to get somewhere. It all starts within, and that within starts with meditation, with establishing a communion, a relationship with God. That is why, as I say, it's difficult to talk about experiences, our personal experiences with Master. Little by little, they come out as circumstances or as your devotion and inspiration, your devotion for Master, draws it out of us. But it's just not possible, at least for me, to, on the day of today, just sit down and talk to us of your personal experiences with Master. It's just something you can't do any more than you could sit down and say to somebody, now this is what I feel for God. This is the way He responds to me, or this is the way He stirs my soul. You just can't do it. First of all, there are no words to express it. And secondly, it's something so personal. What our desire is, and should be, is to, as Dhyama said, to stir up those embers, that you yourself will have that personal relationship, that personal experience with God and with your Guru. That's the only thing that's real for you. It wouldn't do you any good if day and night for years and years I or anybody else sat here and talked to you about what we are feeling or gaining on the spiritual path. It has absolutely no meaning for you. The only thing that will ever have any meaning for you is when those experiences, that unique relationship which you will have with God, begins to be real for you. What will be real and what will satisfy you is as each one of you will gain that relationship with God and with your Guru. And it can be for each and every one. If it were required that the devotee, in order to have that inner experience and the blessing that those experiences bring, if it were required that the devotee have to be in the physical presence of the Guru, either the Guru-disciple relationship would have no meaning, or else the Lord would have to arrange it that the Guru stays forever in physical manifestation to be with every devotee who will come throughout the generations. In other words, if devotees are to gain anything from Jesus, who is gone from this earth 2,000 years ago, then he would either have had to stay in the physical form, or his existence on earth has no meaning now. But the St. Francis's, the St. Teresa's, the St. Anthony's, those who through the years, out of their love and longing to know God and to have that relationship with their Guru, what they have experienced and what it did to their lives, the reality, what it really meant to them, this gave them more than perhaps many who were there with Jesus during the time that he walked upon this earth. I think that is what, in summarizing, I am trying to say. It won't do you any good to just talk about these things. Only to, as we read the lives of saints, as we hear stories about their love for God, this inspires us, this stirs up those embers. That is why Master encouraged us to read stories of the saints, because he knew that this inspired us toward a deeper seeking within ourselves. But even all of that means nothing. It will leave you empty after just a little bit of inspiration unless you act upon that inspiration. After a while, it's left you empty again. But if you act upon that inspiration and you draw the response by that activity, by that spiritual activity, that spiritual longing, you draw the divine to respond within you, then that's something that means something to you, and it never leaves you. It's something that becomes yours forever. And on that, you begin to build a permanent and a completely satisfying relationship with God. Divine Mother, friend, beloved God, Jesus Christ, Bhagavan Krishna, Babaji, Lahiri Mahashai, Swami Sri Yukteswarji, beloved Gurudev, all saints, We bow to you all. O divine beloved of our souls, let our one longing, night and day, be to know you, only you. Set our hearts aflame, set our souls afire, with divine longing to know you, only you. As we serve thee, may it be to know only you. As we meditate, may our longing be to know only you. As we love our loved ones, may it be to love only you. Let this little eye know no existence apart from thee. Let its one longing be to be only with thee. Only with you, my God. Only you. Only you. Om. Peace. Amen.
This has been a production of Self-Realization Fellowship, a non-profit organization founded by Paramahansa Yogananda in 1920. For more information about Self-Realization Fellowship and Paramahansa Yogananda, please visit yogananda.org.